Hey, Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is the Three Keys to Nebraska and Northern Illinois, and the Huskers are 0-2. Yes, 0-2 for the first time in a while. Nebraska comes into this game not yet in the win column. Lost to Minnesota, lost to Colorado, both games on the road. Both games featured 4 turnovers. Both games featured crowds that I think surprised Nebraska's coaching staff and potentially quarterback Jeff Sims. So there were issues all over the board for the Nebraska offense in both games. Nebraska defense was very good for 3 quarters of the Minnesota game and 2 quarters of the Colorado game. I think they wore down in both games, but they really put a lot of pressure on each quarterback. They're playing at, they're hitting on most cylinders. I mean, they're playing a bunch of guys. Those guys all seem to be on the same page. The first 2 teams that they've played have struggled to figure out the run defense, and honestly, they just stopped trying to run. Minnesota threw it 44 times. I think Colorado threw it 42 times, but they really threw it 50 times because Shedeur Sanders was sacked 8 times. And so both teams just kind of said, we're just going to throw it. We're not even going to try to mess with whatever Nebraska is doing in the middle of the field and confusing us and frustrating our offensive line. So that's where Nebraska's at going into this game. Matt Rhule really transparent this week about maybe where his program is at this moment. He said they're carrying around that 0-2 mentality. They've got to find a way to shed it. First, of course, they've got a question at quarterback. We don't know if it's going to be Jeff Sims or Heinrich Haarberg or Chubba Purdy. On Saturday, Sims injured his ankle at Colorado, tried to go back in the game. Rhule pulled him out because I think he wanted to make sure he didn't re-injure the ankle. It's not a high ankle sprain. It does appear that Sims is going to be back relatively soon. It may or may not be on Saturday. We will find out. My sense is that Jeff Sims is going to play on Saturday, but don't hold me to that. Things can change when you're dealing with an ankle. It can get better, it can get worse. There's a few other things. So the keys that we're going to talk about are not really going to be Sims specific. We're going to kind of avoid that, but we are going to look at the things that we think will matter. Key number 1, smooth it out, right? And here's what they've got to do. They've got to smooth out the wrinkles in their offense. You got to get rid of the turnovers. You have to improve your ball security. You have to improve your ball handling, regardless of who the quarterback is. You have to improve the relationship between the motions and the snap. All those things got to be smoothed out. And if you smooth those things out, at the very least, you're not handing Northern Illinois short fields. And Nebraska's done that in both of its first 2 games. If you don't handle that, then you're going to give Northern Illinois an opportunity to score some easy points. I don't think Northern Illinois is a great offense. I think it's going to be hard for them to go 80 yards more than once, maybe. And so I think you've got to smooth it out, give them an opportunity to have to drive the field. They might do that one time. Northern Illinois does not have a dynamic offense, so if Nebraska can limit its own mistakes, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape. Can they run the ball? I do think Nebraska can run the ball, maybe on the edge. I think Northern Illinois is going to try to make it a car crash in between the hash marks, but they might be able to get outside. I do think you can throw the ball against a defense like this because they're probably going to give you some throws. They're going to play aggressively. They're going to let you take some risks, and Nebraska's got to get open. All those things are true, but if Nebraska just eliminates the mistakes, the turnovers, the snap issues, and also the false starts, there's been 5 already on the offensive group this season, then I think Nebraska will be in pretty good shape. Key number 2, Rocky Road. That's a good ice cream. I like ice cream. I like Rocky Road ice cream, but I'm talking about Rocky Lombardi, the Northern Illinois quarterback. He played here in 2018 when he was a member of the Michigan State football team. He didn't play well, no. Nebraska won that game 9-6. That was pretty ugly, and Michigan State didn't play well that day. Nebraska's defense played very well that day. Rocky Lombardi struggled that day. He has made some plays for Northern Illinois. He's in his 7th season. I hope he has a PhD by now at NIU. He's in his 7th season of college football because of a couple of injuries in the COVID year. He is a dual threat. He can run the football. He's a playmaker. He gets outside of the pocket and does some stuff. But he also makes plays for the other team. He's been turnover prone over the course of his career, and I think Nebraska's got to find a way to get this guy to make a couple of mistakes. I do think that they can do that. I think they'll get after him in terms of pressure, and I also think they're going to try really, really hard to get a couple of picks off this guy as well. I think there's probably been an emphasis in practice this week on takeaways, giving that offense an opportunity to go 30 yards instead of 65 or 70 yards. Nebraska's defense has been weak in one area, okay, and that is third down. And those third downs have created numerous situations where Nebraska is basically starting, at the 20 or worse on offense, and this is not an 80-yard offense. That's part of the issue here, folks. They're not an offense that's going to go 80 yards with any regularity, and so Nebraska's defense has to be aggressive and has to try to take away the ball a little bit. They're going to have to make it tough on Rocky Lombardi. I do think Northern Illinois is going to try to run the football. They like to run outside their tackles a lot. They'll run a jet. They run a toss play. They like to get their quarterback outside. I don't think they're going to try to test Nebraska too much in the middle of the field. They'll try to get it on the edges. The Huskers going to have to react well and make sure that they're on top of things. They run a lot of different formations. They can be kind of tricky. Third key, make it special. And I'm talking not just about Nebraska's home opener for Matt Rule, his first home game. I'm talking about the special teams. And special teams wasn't great last week. We have to be honest about that. I don't think they had a kickoff return, or if they did, they just had the one. And they didn't do a lot in the punt return game, and they did not kick the ball well. Tristan Alvano missed a field goal, and they didn't punt the ball well. Brian Buschini had a rough game in altitude. It was kind of odd. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the ball came off his side of his foot at least once. There was another circumstance where it just wasn't a very good kick. Nebraska's got to be good in special teams. I mean, they cannot log a C- on special teams. This is a program that needs to be a B+ to an A- on a consistent basis. And guess what? Outside of the specialists, you can kind of achieve that in terms of effort and structure. What Nebraska needs, especially from Buschini, is a really, really good game. And he'll be in his home field, so hopefully he's comfortable with those environments and that surroundings, and he's able to do the things that he wants to do, punting the football. Putting Northern Illinois deep in its own territory is going to be advantageous for Nebraska. It's always advantageous. Who are we kidding? But especially with this team, because Northern Illinois is a team that wants to take 13, 14 plays, and I just don't think that it's going to be very easy to get 13 or 14 plays on Nebraska's defense. I think you're going to have to try for some stuff, and when they try for some stuff, they might be able to create a turnover. Okay, so that is the three keys. I'll tell you what, I think Nebraska is going to win this football game. I do think they're going to run their record to 1-2, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily pretty or easy. I think Nebraska is about 11.5, 12-point favorite, depends on where you check. I think that might creep up. If it creeps up, that's probably some confidence that Sims is going to play. I got to tell you, I think it's going to be a tough one. For a while, it's going to be a little bit of tough sledding. If Nebraska is able to come out and go up 21-0 in the first quarter, kudos to them. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to take a while. And I think eventually Nebraska will wear them down. They might even get a turnover and set up a touchdown or score a touchdown. I like Nebraska by about 10 points in a low-scoring game, 24-14, 23-13, somewhere in there. I do think the Huskers win, but it won't be easy, and there will be some nervous moments, I suspect, on Saturday night at Memorial Stadium. Okay, that is our three keys for Northern Illinois. For Husker Extra and Omaha World-Herald, I'm Sam McKeown.